Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Greetings from Spain. Apologies for not being there in person. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, family. My presentation should reflect from a practical perspective what my dearest friend just stated. Some of you know about the Declaration of Mallorca, some of you don't. The story began in 2016 in the island of Mallorca in Spain. Every 10 years, the main experts and therapeutic communities from all over the world meet to discuss this TC method or approach while adopting a new declaration of recommendations, guiding principles, and joint commitments to implement within the next 10 years in order to extend therapeutic communities and improve the effectiveness and the impact of our interventions. Just very briefly how we proceeded. Several working groups deeply debated during 2 days with a moderator and a rapporteur about the core elements and challenges of the TCs. In parallel, a steering committee collected all proposals and drafted a text that was presented in plenary for a joint review and thus reach the maximum possible consensus. This picture you see illustrates the adoption of the declaration, not only with our president, Dr. Xusme Taylor, but the regional presidents and the local organizers, Proyecto Hombre. In the light of this declaration, the temporary strategic organizing committee was called like that, was established to somehow translate into actions many of these commitments. During the next year, 2017, several meetings were held, ending with an in-person meeting in Bangkok, Thailand. Indeed, this was a very nice and unique experience. This is another picture. Also in 2017, the Declaration of Mallorca was issued as an official document to the regular session of the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs, and we had the opportunity to read it in plenary session before all member states. Now, since the time of this presentation is very limited, I thought it would be worth to focus my presentation on sharing with you the 15 adopted recommendations of the declaration, followed by a couple of examples for each one, which demonstrate and at the same time want to recognize many of you how your organizations are implementing them on the ground. I could have chosen hundreds and hundreds of examples, so forgive me for that, but time is limited. First one, therapeutic communities support a wide range of addiction profiles by increasing attention to vulnerable groups, such as women, children, homeless people with HIV, people with HIV, hepatitis C, co-occurring disorders, offenders, and others. And let me start by highlighting the monumental work that SPYM from India and the local organizing of this conference are doing in aiding HIV and AIDS population across the country. But also Chase Genoa, running a therapeutic community, an impressive therapeutic community for minors called Il Timone. By the way, Genoa was responsible for the last declaration, the Declaration of Genoa, led by Enrico Costa. And this is a large organization in the United States, West Coast. They're doing very good things in many fields, but I want to highlight today how they support homeless veterans from the US Army. And this is Proyecto Hombre from Portugal. They have a treatment service called Game Off for internet gambling and new addictions. I think that therapeutic communities today are being adjusted, modified to be effective also to new target groups or specific settings. 2, interventions have to be adapted to the participants' needs and their cultural, economic, social, and religious diversity. And here comes Amity Foundation, also from the United States. I think Amity Foundation is one of the organizations with the strongest presence in prison settings. At the same time, it's been taken special care to diversity, to ethnic minorities, such as Native Americans. Here I also want to remember our beloved and passed away Naya Arbiter. Now we go to Africa. Therapeutic communities are starting to be introduced to Africa, but taken into account their economic and cultural context. This is so important. This is Uganda Youth Development Link Project, UDEL, from Uganda. Third, it's critical for representatives from international and regional organizations, government, civil society, and private sector to recognize the role of therapeutic communities in solving problems related to drugs and other addictions, and the consequent suffering of millions of people. The European Federation of Therapeutic Communities has been granted with the ECOSOC status this year. It took 3 years to get it, but we finally got it. We are so happy with that. And I take this opportunity to encourage other regional federations such as FLACO, the Australasian Federation, the Asian Federation, to apply for it. The more we are at international level, at the UN level, the more influencing we become. And I look at this special case in Russia for a long time. This is Dr. Isaev clinic that despite all circumstances, despite many obstacles, Ruslan Isaev has been trying to promote at all levels, political and on the ground, therapeutic communities. This is an extraordinary work they are doing in Russia, where they have a lot of drug problems. First picture is a new TC for teenagers. 4, much progress has been made in introducing the gender perspective into the treatment of addictions. Nonetheless, organizations are invited to reinforce this goal as a priority, gender. This is Cure Woman Center, a therapeutic community for women in Mexico. This is Felix Futures, a TC for single parents or couples with children in the United Kingdom. This is Integrity House, a facility called John Riddick House, a 30 beds women's residential treatment in Newark, United States. And I also want to point out how Centerpoint, precisely Dr. Shushma Taylor has been teaching, I would say teaching and stressing all of us to introduce the gender perspective in treatment. 5th, therapeutic communities welcome aftercare services focused on improving social integration of the participants. These follow-up services are critical in reducing relapsing episodes. Odyssey House, Louisiana, United States, are doing very good things at many levels. But I want to emphasize today the great work they do in housing programs. Also, Magdalena Ops from Czech Republic have implemented a new aftercare program called Follow-Up Care Center Podole, a very innovative one. 6, family and other social networks become key factors during the TC treatment, and we should encourage them to get engaged. How important is family? And now I go to Indonesia, Kasih Mulia Foundation. They are taking the involvement of family members very seriously in their facilities, in their therapeutic communities. This is an example of a family program. CDLL from Lebanon. CDLL is one of the leading organizations on addictions in that country, and they work also extraordinarily well with family. This is called the follow-up family program. 7, the promotion of research and evidence-based interventions become crucial to the sustainability of our therapeutic communities. We invite all organizations to be involved in publishing scientific papers, collaborating with academia and the research economy. And now I want to bring this out. I think this is a historical fact. Tomorrow in the closing plenary session, Pablo Curlander and Enrico Costa will launch actually the first annual World Report on Therapeutic Community. And to me, this is for sure a turning point. Also, I think one of the greatest researchers on therapeutic communities today is Wouter van der Splaten from the University of Ghent in Belgium. This is an example of his work, Therapeutic Communities for Treatment of Addictions in Europe, a monograph of the European Observatory on Drugs of the European Union. 8. By the way, I know that many of you are doing good research, and we really welcome that. 8, we call upon the World Federation of Therapeutic Communities and all members to produce cost-benefits studies to demonstrate the value of the TC model to stakeholders. And this is a social return of investment study done in 2017 by my organization, Proyecto Hombre. And you can see the figure below. For each euro invested in this project, a treatment, recovery, and fostering employment project, society is saving more than 5. 9. We acknowledge that transparency and accountability are fundamental for the functioning of the organizations in the addiction field. These are mandatory prerequisites for obtaining and sustaining credibility from governments and society. And this is a paramount example, a very significant example. Australasian Federation Communities Association from Australia and New Zealand has been implementing what's called ADCA standards, not only promoting that their members, the therapeutic communities, work following quality standards, but also auditing and supervising that they are complying with. This is the new board of the Latin American Federation of Therapeutic Communities, and they got the commitment after the pandemic to reestablish the great training and certification program, but also innovating with e-learning system. 10. In many countries, therapeutic communities are insufficiently funded. We encourage policymakers to support disease, for they provide an irreplaceable aid for recovering addicted people. At the same time, it's urgent to diversify financing sources by exploring alternative funding. Take this opportunity also to applaud the 4 co-sponsors of this conference: Odyssey House Louisiana, Westcare, Centerpoint, and AMD Foundation. And I want to highlight this, not only because they had the will to collaborate, but they can collaborate because their model in the regard of funding is kind of success. So we should all learn from them. So it's not only appreciating his support in this conference, but also learning how they are able to run all their organizations in such a way in terms of funding. But in other regions, I just selected this one from Sri Lanka Foundation International. You probably know, some of you, they're very good and very active at fundraising activities. They do races, they do social gala dinners. They even have a company for coffee called Ceylon Coffee. 11. The WFTC will reinforce our continued presence and advocacy of the TC movement in international organizations and fora, in collaboration with regional federations and civil society networks. Many stakeholders or many governments, internationally and nationally, know about TCs because of the now international That's a fact. Its strategy at global level to advocate for better policies, it's impressive. They are not only participating in the ECOSOC, but UNESCO, OAS, even the Commission for the Status of Women, etc. Augusto Nogueira from Macau, Association for Rehabilitation of Drug Abusers, he's been playing a very active role at the UN level. For instance, he's been leading with others a new civil society forum called the Asia Pacific Working Group. 12. We recognize that TC staff need continuous training and education, mentoring, caregiving, and external supervision. When you talk about training and therapeutic communities, you have to speak about Cell Foundation and its training center called International Institute of Therapeutic Communities in the Philippines, Martin Infante. I also want to emphasize the long-lived training school of Oriol Esculies Foundation from Colombia, Padre Gabriel Mejia. 13. TC leaders should be inspirational, transparent, and of service to the community and to the organizations. The TC movement is evolving to new organizational leaderships. The renewal of leadership is of paramount importance and can be achieved through carefully designed succession plans. As this is a very sensitive, critical issue, I don't dare to speak about others, but my organization, Proyecto Hombre, which I think has a very healthy model in this regard. This is, you see, a picture of the regional directors. I was one of them some months ago, but I decided to step down. But no one told me to do so, because there is an inherent culture that we are serving in these positions for a while, and it's our responsibility to train and to accompany someone to replace you in some years. For instance, the national president is one of us, selected only for a 4-year term. He or her cannot repeat for a second term. 14. Therapeutic communities require interdisciplinary professional teams, including experts by experience, to deal with the complexity of addiction within a biopsychosocial framework. The identity of TC staff lies in a combination of professionalism, dedication to service, and passion for people. We miss Roddy Yates very much. He was the past president of the European Federation of Therapeutic Communities. From Scotland, the University of Stirling, one of the greatest professors and researchers on therapeutic communities. He always said, and he was his mantra, that therapeutic communities should be evidence-based and professionalized. But at the same time, he was a former addict and a musician. And he really believed in this merging staff with people with experience and also people coming from academia. 15. Communication through internet and social media is an indispensable tool for increasing the awareness of society about the harmful consequences of addiction. This type of communication also contributes to the visibility of TCs and their effectiveness. Let me finish by highlighting the piece of work done by the Communication Committee, led by Ed Carlson and many others. For instance, we have a newsletter called Your WFTC News. Please subscribe to it, but also send news of your organizations, and then we can share it to all the global network. We also have a website. Please visit it, wftc.org. If you want to read or even download the whole Declaration of Mallorca, you will find it in this website. And let me finish and let me conclude by reading the last paragraph of the Declaration of Mallorca that says that the declaration reaffirms the commitment of the therapeutic community movement to serve addicted populations and their social networks all over the world by restoring their hope, dignity, and personal well-being. Well, thank you so much. I think that we will meet in 2026 after 10 years of the adoption of the declaration. I don't know where, maybe in Mallorca again, who knows. Thank you so much, and I hope that my presentation has been of your interest.